Welcome back, y'all. While we're on the subject of this Hall of Fame business and whatnot, I'm probably going to be doing a series of these things with the Hall of Fame because it's like I think I've mentioned before. I went to the Hall of Fame back in I think 2012. My wife took me, and me and my wife and my daughter, we went there to Canton, Ohio. We went there. It was always a childhood dream of mine to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We went there and had a great time. One of the most memorable times I ever had. But as you get into this whole thing about the Hall of Fame, you just see how it kind of rears certain things that they do. With certain guys that need to be in the Hall of Fame, they're not in the Hall of Fame. You ask yourself, what's going on here? As a lifelong Dallas fan, and it's one cowboy in particular that I don't get to this day why he is not in the Hall of Fame. And I don't see why it's not like a push for it, because I think Dallas gets a bad rap based upon things that other people did. When I say that, the press and made Dallas the team or America's team and all the stuff. It's funny for me to poke the bear and mess with it, but a lot of that stuff is like, I think it hurt a lot. And Dallas lost a couple of so close Super Bowls, definitely to the Steelers, and the heartbreaker definitely in the Super Bowl V. When going back to what I'm getting ready to segue into, the question should be to these Hall of Famers and these guys that do the voting. And the way I've always looked at the voting is like, who in each era in a decade, who was the best at their positions? What did they do? How did they do? How did their teams do? And how did they perform in big games? Okay. Now, we're coming up. This particular player retired in 1973. I wanted to asking the committee, the Hall of Fame committee, if they ever so happen to see this, or anybody that sees this that knows guys that's in the Hall of Fame committee, why is Chuck Howley, the great outside linebacker for Dallas, not in the National Football League or the Pro Football Hall of Fame? You have got to come up with better reasons than the reasons that I don't even see, that nobody's even giving me. Let's run down the line about what Mr. Howley did and what he accomplished. Howley came in the league in 1958. Lackluster years over there, about 2 years with Chicago, right? He tore up his knee or whatever. By 61, he starting at left linebacker, right linebacker. He basically started, and by the time he got to 1963, he's at left linebacker, right? He's the left linebacker in the 4-3 defense. That's your middle and your two outside linebackers, right? People call him, like I said, he's the left. I'm not just your strong side or what have you. Left side linebacker. Now, it's funny to me that so from 1963, starting when he's a left linebacker, and this left linebacker going to right linebacker, he kind of flipped back and forth a little bit, but he's an outside linebacker. From 1960, and we go from 1965 to 1971, Chuck Howley was the best in the business at outside linebacker, whichever side he ever decided to play on. Now you're talking about someone that their team, whenever the years that he played, finished in the top 10 in defense, whether it be scoring or yards, scoring defense or yards. You know what I'm saying? Where you wasn't getting a lot of yards on Dallas on that original Doomsday defense. Lilly, Pugh, them guys, Andre, all of them type of guys that play, Larry Cole and all them guys like that. So here we go with this. So in 1968, actually at the age of 32, he leads all linebackers with 6 interceptions in the league. Now, like I said, Chuck Howley was a 5-time first-team All-Pro. He was 5 years in a row first-team All-Pro, 6-time Pro Bowler. He played in 2 Super Bowls. He played in 2 NFL championship games. He has a Super Bowl ring. He is the first and last player to be named MVP of a Super Bowl of a losing team. That's never going to happen again. That's never going to happen again. You can mark your word on that. That'll never happen again. Now, let's do this. In this time frame, in the 2 Super Bowls that he played in, right? In the 2 Super Bowls, in the Super Bowl era, He is responsible for 5 turnovers. He had 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl 5, which is also known as the messiest Super Bowl ever, but he did great things. Think he had 2 interceptions and caused a fumble. Super Bowl 6 against the Miami Dolphins, because the first one was against the Colts in 5. They lost. They blow out basically Miami. He has he has an interception and he had an interception and he had an interception and a fumble recovery that I think he fumble recovery and had an interception. He accounted for 5 turnovers, 3 picks, 1 fumble return, and 1 forced fumble. I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's what he did in the 2 Super Bowls. Okay? Now, in his career, he had 25 interceptions for 399 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 18 fumble recoveries for 191 yards. He had over 43 turnovers, 590 yards after those turnovers, and 3 touchdowns. Explain to me why Mr. Howley is not in that of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Dallas was winning. By the time it gets 65, this is when 65, this is when Dallas starts their winning ways. That kind of lasted from that time to the latter part of the 60s, all through the 70s, and through midway of the 80s. Okay? You're looking at just top of the game, one of the top teams, Also get knocked out by the Packers in NFL championships and then going to 2 Super Bowls. But nonetheless, they were coming up in the ranks, and Landry got his win as his coach. And that's when Dallas really started making the move. And Chuck Howley and the rest of them, even guys like Leroy Jordan, who played in the middle, who could probably have an argument for middle linebacker, but with so many great middle linebackers at that time, and has come on and did that. And that's middle linebacker because it's always there. It's not that many outside linebackers in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The 4-3 outside linebacker, the original ones are from the 4-3, right? A lot of guys that's in there now is from a 3-4 defense where it was rush linebackers. I'm going to get back to that later. So when you talk about him, now let's go back to it's 3. I'm going to say 4. It's 3. I'll say 2. I'm going to use these 2 right now. You had Dave Wilcox, who, remember the argument for him was like, why wasn't he in the Hall of Fame? He was a great outside linebacker and all that. Dave Wilcox, 2-time first team All-Pro, 2-time second team. 7-time Pro Bowler, 14 interceptions. He had 14 interceptions. 14 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, no rings, no big time championship games or anything. They played against Dallas, 2 NFC championship games, got beat twice. Okay, that's Dave Wilcox, great outside linebacker. They known as the Intimidator. Okay, great outside linebacker. He finally got his just due. Like I said, 14 picks. 12 fumble recoveries, right? So you're looking at 14, 24. You're looking at 26 turnovers altogether. Outside linebacker. Go to the next one. 2011, Chris Handberger of the dreaded Washington Redskins. 4-time All-Pro first team. 9 Pro Bowls. 19 picks. 17 fumble recoveries. 3 touchdowns. 0 rings. Go to 1 Super Bowl, lose against the Dolphins. Okay? Chris Hamburger, nice linebacker, all of that. Hang 'em high Chris, they called him. Hang 'em high Hamburger, whatever term they use. Great linebacker. Watch different highlights of him that I could find and everything like that. And everything and all that. Dave Robinson, 3-time All-Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler, 27 picks, 12 fumble recoveries. He was with the Packers. He got 2 rings in the Super Bowl, and he got rings as an NFL champion. So he got like 4 championship rings. 2 in the Super Bowl era, right? 27 picks, 27, 37, 38. That's like 39 turnovers that he accumulated, right? That's those 3 guys. At least there is no reason why Dave Wilcox, Chris Handberger, or even down to Dave Robinson, but I'm going to say Dave Wilcox and Chris Handberger is not supposed to be in the Hall of Fame before that of Chuck Howley. There is no way that what the reasoning somebody has to give me some type of reason. I already gave you the stats on what Chuck Howley did as an outside linebacker. And truth be told, from different things that I heard, they basically, his game was mimicked, what a coach mimicked, that's what he did, mimic Jack Ham to be in Pittsburgh. And Howley is not that far from what Jack Ham did some years later. Okay? Now you get the best 4-3 outside linebacker that ever played the game, in my opinion, more or less. I could say Jack Ham. But the guy that started it all, that got all of this, Bobby Bell. 9-time All-AFL, AFC, whatever you want to call it. 9 Pro Bowls, 26 picks, 6 touchdowns off the 26 picks, 15 fumble recoveries, 2 touchdowns off of that. He even did a kick return for a touchdown. Bobby Bell, 6'3", 6'4", 230. Come on, man. I'm like, you look at him, he's the first outside linebacker ever inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The first. First one. First African-American outside linebacker inducted in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. First African-American linebacker pretty much in there as far as linebackers concerned, as far as outside linebacker concerned, / like defensive end. So he was doing certain things that a lot of these other guys, wasn't doing and stuff like that, or what have you. But Chuck Howley is right up there with all of these guys. They're right there. Between Dave Wilcox, Chris Hamburger, and Dave Robinson, his game was just as good, if not better, than them 3 guys that I sit up there. His game is favorable with all those guys. All of those guys that I named are in the Hall of Fame, and rightfully so. But why isn't it Chuck Howley is not in that of the Hall of Fame? It's something that mind boggles me. I don't get that. And maybe somebody in the comments can sit up there and say, let me explain to you why, or somebody from the committee explain to me why Chuck Howley's not in the Hall of Fame. There is no reason with what he's done. He's one of the top. We're talking about he played all throughout the 60s. Hell, he's not even on the all-decade team, which I don't even see how that's possible. There's some linebacker from Chicago that's there that made all-decade team. And if you want to, whatever, but I'm like, he played at the time. So the years where he was really dominant from 65 to 71, so 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, that's 5 years of dominance in a decade. A decade is 10 years, as they say. So what gives? You compare him to the other linebackers, these other guys. Wilcox played in the 60s, Hamburger played in the 60s, Dave Robinson played in the 60s, Bobby Bell played in the 60s. And you explain to me how Dave Wilcox, Chris Hamburger is in there before him. I'm not going to even bring out the other 2 guys. How is Dave Wilcox and Chris Hamburger in there before him, and none of them have any rings? None of them have any rings. Not one. No big championship games, no nothing like that. I already gave you what Howley did. So all you Dallas Cowboy fans out there that's listening to this and is checking this out and got no people higher than what I'll ever even probably know, tell them to explain to you how come and why Chuck Howley's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I need to know this. I really need to know how come he's not an old-time committee or whatever. Based on his stats and his hardware and what he did, there is no reason why Chuck Howley shouldn't be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. No reason. No reason at all. Because you got 1, 2, 3, 4 linebackers. Take 4 from the 60s, from that 4-3 defense, and I honestly think that Jack Ham is the last of the Mohicans of that 4-3 defense, that a 4-3 that plays just strictly that plays that type of sound football. Don't make no mistakes. Great against the run. Can blitz. Can cover. Can drop back. Can do all those types of things. You follow? And Chuck Howley was just as good as anybody else. Just as good as some other guys. Like I said, Bobby Bell to me was the standard. And from Bobby Bell, and I'm just talking about from the 60s. After Bobby Bell, in my opinion, is Chuck Howley. It's Chuck Howley. Then it's probably Hamburger. Then it's then probably Dave Robinson. And then and Wilcox probably. I'm like that. But I'm like Bobby Bell and Chuck Howley to me, for my money, are the best outside linebackers of the 60s. That's my take on that. Yo, guys, check me out. Subscribe to the page. Really, like I say, really love the love that I get. You guys subscribe to the page. Check me out on Twitter on TutMan62. Everything Football 62. Check us out on Twitter. Like I say, subscribe to the YouTube page. Leave some comments. We can start some dialogue, some conversation. And I'm going to be back, maybe not tonight, but I'm going to be back in a few, start trying to get some things about Hall of Fame. And I don't want people to get mad. No, I'm a Cowboys fan, but I'm a football historian. I love football. So one of the main things I'm going to be doing is also talking about why a lot of other great players is not in the Hall of Fame for whatever reason. Because now you start to get guys in the Hall of Fame that, like, it's a popularity contest. And it shouldn't be that. We should be based on it. If you put in over a decade of work, and you was the top of your position for about 5 or 6 years, and you played in some big games, and you got a ring, or even if you didn't get a ring, but if you was the top of your game, and you played for a decade, and you was the top of your game for about a 5 or 6 year run, there's no reason why you shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. And you made some serious noise and stuff like that. Hey, you need to be in the Hall. Not everybody's going to get in there. I get it, but at the same time, certain things have to be. Like I said, I can make a case for Cliff Harris. And I honestly believe the Cowboys of the 70s, had they beat Steelers at least one time, but say if they beat Steelers twice, they would have people up, it would be more people in the Hall of Fame, probably, more than likely. Okay? So you guys have a good one. We come back later with you. We come back, see you later. And you guys have a good one. Talk with you later.